Well, nearly 2 years into the coronavirus pandemic, supply shortages have become the norm, and inflation is hitting 30-year highs. As Mitch Legan reports, a convergence of issues is setting the table for the most expensive Thanksgiving yet.
I'm making tacos, a chicken casserole.
We met up with Darcy Teague as she unpacked her haul from her latest trip to the Bedford Walmart.
The beef was, I think, almost $5, and before $5 per pound. Before I was paying probably about $2.53.
Like many Hoosiers, grocery runs have become more expensive for Teague. A trip that would have fed her family of 5 for a week used to cost $150.
Now it's probably about $200, $250 a week. Sometimes more if we have to get like toiletry stuff.
The jump in grocery prices is the biggest in a decade. Milk is up 4%. Fruits and veggies up 3%, and meat, poultry, and eggs are up almost 12% from last year. The jump in prices means Teague's searching for deals and planning out meals that'll have lots of leftovers.
What I make now, I have to make things that are more affordable. So I'm cooking more chicken now instead of beef.
When it comes to turkey, she has extra reason to be thankful. Her in-laws are hosting Thanksgiving, and it won't be cheap. The average cost of this year's turkey dinner is about $53. Price hikes in Seymour are causing some people to think about the holidays.
To tell you the truth, my wife and I have talked about maybe not even buying too much Christmas at all.
The last consumer price index showed overall inflation at its highest since the 1990s.
The biggest part of it, I would say, is the supply chain disruptions that we're seeing and some of the challenges in the labor market.
Anderson points to issues with supply and demand. Many families bought less at the beginning of the pandemic. As government stimulus checks rolled in, they started spending.
People have held off of spending over the last year and a half. So that's causing there to be more demand for goods and services than we can provide right now. And the result is higher prices.
At the same time, producers and manufacturers had to slow down production. When people started spending again, they weren't ready to meet the spike in demand. Many have had to bump up wages to convince people to come back to work. That's led to increases in shipping costs and production delays in the supply chain. And when one part of the chain suffers, the rest is affected.
During the holiday season last year, there was still product in the U.S. Warehouses were still full. Now there aren't stocked warehouses. We've kind of run through that, so people are having to bring things from outside of the states in.
At Goods for Cooks, supply chain disruptions have sent shipping costs up by 50% in some cases. Last month, Eibling received an order of toasters that she had placed the previous October.
And so eventually something's got to give, and it gets passed on. So sometimes temporarily, sometimes not.
Many economists say the inflation we're seeing is transitory or temporary, but that doesn't mean it'll be fixed anytime soon.
I think a lot of the supply chain issues are likely to be addressed in the next 4 to 6 months. So we should see some alleviation there in terms of pricing pressure. But, it's very likely that the market will be impacted into 2022 because of this.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Mitch Legan.
We're joined now by Andrew Butters. He's an assistant professor of business economics and public policy for IU's Kelley School of Business. Hello and welcome.
Hey.
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, great to be here.
So inflation at its highest in 30 years. Is it accurate to compare today's economy to what it was 30 years ago, or are there too many unique events right now?
So I think it's a little bit hard to compare the two inflationary episodes, that we're having here and as opposed to the previous ones in history. And I think a lot of that's just due to the fact that this is coming off a global pandemic. So a lot of the factors that are very much unique to the current situation, I think, are a little bit more difficult to then say an apples to apples comparison relative to times past. Just one thing to point to that would be just we're in a very different interest rate environment right now than we were 30 years ago. And so I think it's a little bit too hard to make those comparisons, I think.
Sure. How about the recently signed infrastructure bill? Does that have any effect now on the supply chain that we've been seeing that there are problems about?
So I think it could certainly help a little bit, but I wouldn't want to give anyone the impression that it's going to be this sort of magic silver bullet that's going to address all the issues. And I think one thing to note on that is that what we're really experiencing is the pressures that we're facing coming from a global supply chain, and so a lot of the elements of the bill are going to be, very much focused to the infrastructure of this country, which will certainly help move goods around this country. But I think, it'll be limited in terms of how it could release the pressures that we're seeing right now.
Should people just be concerned overall about the economy? Prices are up, but so is consumer confidence.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I think, my own take is that I'm cautiously optimistic. So we had, household savings has really been really high as of late. We saw, the unemployment rate come down quite a bit, and we've also seen, really pretty strong growth. I know Q3 GDP was a little bit depressed, but we saw a really nice industrial production. So I expect Q4 and going into 2022 to be a really strong path for the economy.
Yeah. Unemployment is under 5%. Jobless claims are down, but everywhere you look, there's still help wanted signs. Does that make sense?
Well, I think that's one of the other pressures that we're seeing in addition to the supply chain is that the labor market right now is really, really tight. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're still seeing labor force participation very much depressed. So there's still a lot of sort of missing Hoosiers in the labor market right now. And it'll be very interesting to see going forward how many of those end up returning to the workforce and helping out continue this growth in the economy.
Thank you so much for your time. We have to leave it there. Appreciate it.
Thank you.